Welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm Ben Data, co-chair of DSW. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of Denver Startup Week. This community has been the catalyst for lots of change over the past decade, and this week we're coming together to celebrate the past and dream big for the future. We are able to bring Denver Startup Week to this community thanks to our 2021 sponsors. Thank you to our HQ and title sponsor, Amazon, and our title sponsors, whose leadership makes this week come to life. Capital One Cafe, Downtown Denver Partnership, Fluid Truck, Hotel Engine, and WeWork. And our track sponsors, who have made all of the great content you're hearing today possible. Founder Track, Kickstart, Growth Track, Friday Health Plans, Developer Track, Quizlet, Product Track, Palantir, Designer Track, Battery 621 in the Public Works, People Track, Exactly, and Spotlight event sponsor, Strat Labs. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement this week. Thank you to B-Side Fun, Colorado Public Radio, Comcast, Coors Brewing Company, Denver Pavilions, Entrepreneurship at the University of Denver, Gusto, JP Morgan Chase, Method, Moss Adams, Pine Insurance, Promontory MortgagePath, Red Bull Basement, Southwest, Tattered Cover, and VF Venture Foundry. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors listed on the screen. Please say thank you to these companies as you enjoy our hybrid Denver Startup Week. And don't forget to use hashtag #DenStartupWeek to share your experience and moments of inspiration on social media. Have a great week.
Hello everyone, welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm John, the Spotlight Track Chair and member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you for joining us for the 10th anniversary of Denver Startup Week. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a space where attendees can connect, learn, and grow regardless of age, gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, or sexual orientation. A special thank you to our sponsors for their support in helping us keep DSW free and accessible for all. Thank you for joining us and have a great week.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ann Henderson, Managing Director of Client Services at Promontory MortgagePath, and I'm excited to welcome you to this session as sponsors of Denver Startup Week's series, Stronger Together. This event series celebrates bold ideas, keen ambitions, the diverse landscape of women-owned and led gender-inclusive businesses throughout Colorado, and the many organizations that support them. For those of you who don't know us, Promontory MortgagePath is a Denver-based fintech startup on a mission to fundamentally change the way community lenders approach their mortgage business. We're a fast-growing team of problem solvers that are leveraging tech to engineer a faster, simpler, more inclusive mortgage process. Our team is driven by a shared desire to make change, and our collaborative environment is rooted in transparency and continuous self-improvement. We've continued to grow over the last year, adding well over 100 Denver-based and remote team members. So if you're seeking an environment dedicated to your personal and professional success and growth, one where you can have real and lasting impact, I encourage you to stop by our booth or at the job fair or visit our careers page on our website. We're grateful for the opportunity to partner with Denver Startup Week to support Denver's connected and diverse entrepreneurship ecosystem. And we're especially proud to sponsor the Stronger Together series. Promontory MortgagePath firmly believes advocating for women in entrepreneurship and business in general. More than half of our team members and executive level positions are held by members identifying as female. Gaining inspiration from women who forged their path, like our upcoming speakers, Prove CEO Amy Beckley and CMO Ellen Schell, is important as we continue to support women in leadership. And with that, let's welcome Amy, Ellen, and Prove CTO Jeff Schell. Enjoy the session.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Jeff Schell. I am the leader of the Ventures Growth Practice at Hull Estel. I'm also very fortunate to be involved in Prove. And it's a fascinating story that started before the pandemic. Sort of accelerated through the pandemic, and there were many challenges and bumps in the road, but it's a really interesting story that I think we're happy to share. So before I let Amy and Ellen introduce themselves, I'll sort of preface it by saying that Amy a few years ago was working in a lab, and I think working on pig vaccines as a lab scientist. Ellen sort of had a very different path. She was the marketing director of Silk, which is a major soy and other milk brand, and also the brand manager for Coors Light, which may be a brand that people are familiar with on the call. So very different paths, but obviously they came together and some magic happened. They now run a multi-million-dollar revenue company. It's very fast growing. It's in the midst of closing a Series A. So today, we're going to learn what happened. So without further ado, Amy, why don't you start before founding MFB Fertility? Could you talk a little bit about what you were doing and what happened that made you want to start a fertility company?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is I dealt with infertility and it sucked. It sucked really bad and it was broken and it was very inefficient. And I decided that I, have a PhD in pharmacology, really liked the idea of helping people, getting products out of lab into the hands of people that can use them. And so after I dealt with infertility and, was diagnosed with unexplained infertility, I decided I was going to help diagnose myself with the help of my doctor. And through that process has realized that something that I was told would take $40,000 to do, for me was a simple $100 prescription. And the doctors didn't have the right information to treat patients. And so that's where the idea came about. Never once did I decide that it was like, oh, I'm going to start this big company. It was just, I want to help people. I just want to help people. And I think I can do it. And so we, $50 logo off Upworks, and another woman who went through IVF put our heads together, started an Indiegogo campaign and got enough money to start the company and help women. So that's kind of how it started, was, literally my basement.
So we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But first I want to hear from Ellen. You obviously came to the company from a very different path. What were you doing before MFB Fertility, and what happened, and what about Amy made her appealing to join as a co-founder?
All awesome questions. So you took my joke that I tend to tell, which is always, I've worked on a little brand called Coors Light that typically people have heard of. So I actually started my career at an advertising agency right after college, and then ended up working over at Miller Coors for a few years. Was kind of recruited over there by an old boss. And the beer business was really interesting and really fun. And I worked in it in my 20s, which made it probably even more fun than it probably should have been. But it was awesome. And I learned a ton about big brand marketing and promotion. But I had gone through business school at the time as well. And I really wanted to have more ownership over a business, which is tricky in the beer industry because of how it's set up. And so I ultimately decided to join White Wave Foods after I finished business school. White Wave Foods is now known as Danone. It's up in Broomfield. So as Jeff mentioned, I worked on the Silk business for about 5 years, and then worked a little bit on Horizon Organic, which is an organic milk brand. So seems really weird, right? Like beer to milk to fertility testing. But what ultimately drew me to Amy is that I thought she had just such tremendous grit. When I met her, I thought it was a tremendous idea. The crazy part is I had actually already been through 2 pregnancies myself, and was fortunate enough to not deal with infertility, but I had no idea about any of this stuff until she taught me about it. And I just realized there was a huge gap in terms of education with women for their, their own bodies, their own health. And the other thing that really impressed me about Amy is that, she bootstrapped the company, which she talked a little bit about, but she was selling this thing in plastic Ziploc bags when she first started, and she sold 6 figures worth of this product in plastic Ziploc bags, which of course, as a marketer, I was like, that is so sketchy. I cannot believe there's anyone that is buying a test product in Ziploc bags. But it showed to me the power of the product, something that didn't even have, kind of a fancy brand or package associated with it or any promotion behind it, could have that kind of organic traction. It was just really impressive and something that I felt like I couldn't ignore.
Cool. So Amy, you mentioned that this is a very personal story for you. There's, maybe you can fill in a few of the gaps between, your own personal infertility struggles and actually deciding to start a company, because there are plenty of women out there, obviously, that, are facing similar challenges that didn't exactly start to decide to start a company. So, how did you even decide where to begin?
It's a good question. I don't think anyone's ever really asked me that point blank like you just did. I don't think it was really an option for me. It was just, I had this struggle, and then I would get friend after friend kind of coming in and telling me they were also struggling. And so I would provide them one-on-one analysis, be like, okay, go talk to your doctor, get these type of tests, see if it's this problem. And after a few friends went through it, had the same experience that I did, I was like, I can't not do this. Like, it is just not right of how much we're lacking and how we don't have this information accessible. And so, it's always been kind of like this idea. And then somebody who also went through IVF, she called me one day and was like, you know what, this is the final straw. We've got to do something. Like, we just literally have to do something. We can't just not do anything. And so that conversation was, okay, well, how do two scientists get a product to market? Well, you can either put in your own money, which we didn't have, get an investor, which we didn't know of any, or ask people to pre-buy it. And so that's what we did, was the third one. So, we're like, you know what? I think it's a great idea. I think we're going to help people. I don't know how to do this other than asking the people if they want the product. And so we did crowdfunding, and that is a really good way to present the product to the market and see if they're willing to buy it, because we're like, you buy it today and we'll give it to you next year. And there was enough traction, there was enough pre-sales where it basically did two things for us. Is it gave us money so we can actually develop a product, and two, it validated that yes, there was a market for this. So bootstrappy, scrappy, make it happen kind of thing actually was a very big benefit for us.
All right, maybe briefly, just in case, some of the people on the call aren't familiar with the product, why don't you just introduce the problem specifically that you had and how the initial product solved that problem?
Yeah. So I purposely did not use the Denver background because I have this beautiful, wonderful uterus in my background that I love to educate on. So basically, to get pregnant, you need an egg to be fertilized and implant in the uterus in order to get pregnant. And so if you think about this is the egg coming out of the uterus. It gets fertilized in the fallopian tube and it implants in the uterus. And so the entire fertility industry is so focused on timing intercourse. So when that egg leaves the ovary, how does it get fertilized? You need the timing, sperm meets egg. And it's like, so many people are looking at this problem this way, that way, the other way. My device is better. No, you get more fertile days with me. That they're forgetting that you also need to have a good uterine environment. And so that's what we focus on, is making sure your uterus is ready for that embryo to implant, which is a second part of ovulation. And so we have a diagnostic test that measures the hormone that prepares the uterus to receive that embryo and to house that pregnancy. And so with the help of Jeff, who's a patent attorney as well, he's got lots of hats. We have 3 patents so far that are issued that help us with the method, the use. It's basically a diagnostic test. You test first morning urine on specific days of your cycle. We let you basically know what your chance of conception is. Is your uterus ready? Is it not? Is it sort of ready. You can do some things to kind of make it more ready, just to increase your chances of conception.
Great. So going back to the founding of the company, what were some of the initial challenges that you faced?
I mean, this is a FDA regulated product. That's a huge hurdle. We were women on a mission to help other women and not let status quo be status quo anymore. And we were going to do everything possible. So we went on the FDA website and read the rules and how to create a medical device. And we did that. We unfortunately only had $45,000 to start with. And so the initial partner that we selected to help us took advantage of us because, we only had so much money. And so, about a year and a half into the business, we had to make a huge transition to a different partner because he started to take advantage of us. It was a big challenge, to be scrappy, to get what you want. And I think being a woman, there's more of an opportunity for you to get taken advantage of, because a lot of people don't it's just a woman, she doesn't know what she's talking about, I'm going to overcharge her, or so we've had to go through a lot of bad people to find good people. I think that might be a unique challenge for women founders in general.
All right, and let me turn to Ellen. So Ellen, you joined Amy after these very, very initial phases. First, what about Amy led you to join her?
Well, I talked about this a little bit before, but just, I could see how important the work that she was doing was. I was actually at a time, I had mentioned before that I personally did not deal with infertility issues, but, you get to a certain age and you are invariably going to have some family member, friend, acquaintance, etc., who deals with these issues. It's just the reality as, families wait a little bit longer to start having kids and getting married and things of that nature. And so I watched a lot of my friends, suffer through this issue. And I just, after seeing the technology, and Amy actually didn't have a beautiful uterus to even explain it to me at the time. But she has a beautiful uterus, but not the one on the wall. But she was able to explain it to me so simply, and through her story, honestly, too, this amazing, she has a son that is a $40,000 IVF baby, and then a daughter who it's only $100, and she's, amazing and perfectly healthy too. And it's why did she have to go through all that? So I was just really inspired by, how far she had taken it herself, but the story, the technology, and, I saw the vision that kind of got her started, and that fire that grew in her, which was this is all about helping other people and getting people to their goals, because, if you want to have a family, then we believe that, you should have a path to get there.
All right. And so Amy had a very different path. She went through crowdfunding. You were coming from a very different perspective as the marketing director of a big company with, arguably a more stable job, a cush job even. So it was quite a leap, obviously, to leave that role, leave that job, and join Amy. Maybe talk about that challenge and what were some of the things that led you to make that decision?
Sure. So I think, one of the things that I will offer about WhiteWave, which is a really fantastic company, is, and one of the things that was really exciting about it when I first joined is that it was a huge company, but it was very entrepreneurial in nature. So the culture of WhiteWave was certainly, it had started, it was soy milk started in a bathtub, right? So it's I go to these things, silk soy milk started in a bathtub, Proof started in a basement, but humble beginnings, and it grew out of that. And that culture was really infused, and I just loved the energy. And the, kind of the creative thinking that comes in an entrepreneurial environment, and certainly experience that, even though at the time that I joined, White Wave was a multi-million-dollar company. And so I think I had always had a little bit of that bug, having had that experience, and no pun intended, but I really wanted to prove to myself, honestly, that I could do it, right? So obviously our product name is Prove, but I really, have always had this itch to, say, can I build a brand really from the ground up? Like, am I good enough? Am I talented enough to do that? And, I certainly feel like there's this really special thing that happens when you find the intersection of passion, skill set, and then need. And I felt like I saw the need with Amy. She had this fantastic product, fantastic science, but she needed a little bit of help from, just a marketing business standpoint. I had the passion. And then I, believe that I had the skill too. And so, that was a big part of what, led me down this road to make the leap.
Yeah, and coming from a marketing background, big company marketing background, what were some of the challenges that you saw, especially focusing on the brand and the marketing, but just early on, what were some of the things that you thought needed to be addressed?
Well, I'm going to poke a little bit of fun again, just because, we're all friends here, but, Amy's initial logo, which again, I understand that there was limited funding and stuff, but it had Comic Sans in it, which from a marketing standpoint is, it's kind of like a joke font. I mean, no judgment if you like Comic Sans, but the font had Comic Sans. It was called the MFB Fertility Ovulation Double Check, which I felt was a little bit of a mouthful. And so, I really wanted to simplify things and also make sure that we were building a platform that could expand well beyond just the initial technology, because, I saw such incredible talent in this person that I knew that she's an inventor, she's a creator. I was like, I need to build something that like all the ideas are going to fit into. And if we just call it Ovulation Double Check, then that kind of narrows us down into one specific space. And so that was a big piece, making sure that we came up with a really great platform that could house both the base technology and future technologies that Amy was going to come up with.
Cool. So you guys got together. This is 2018, 2019, and I think toward the end of into 2019, you were starting to build that brand. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So kind of the first step was to come up with a name. And so I guess we'll tell another little story, which, we always joke about still. So, again, we started with MFB Fertility Ovulation Double Check. I was like, that's way too much. We got to get a little bit more, more concise here. And so I come up with a few names, and we looked at the trademark searches, and just everything kept getting knocked out. Things were just not available from a trademark standpoint. So it's starting to get really frustrated, because I'm thinking, like, what am I going to call this thing? And so I was flying back from, actually I had gone out to visit a friend in LA who just had a baby, and I'm flying back from her house, and I started to just like write down the words progesterone and ovulation over and over. I was like, what kind of inspiration can I get? And then I started underlining things like, wait a second, progesterone ovulation test, PROOV, prove. And that's what it does. It confirms ovulation. Oh my gosh, this is the perfect name. I was so excited. So the plane is like coming into DIA, obviously the typical turbulence that you feel. And I'm like so excited to land, because I can't wait to call Amy and tell her that I've come up with the name, and this is going to be the name of our product. And so we touch down, I call her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got it. It's Prove. That's the name. And so I basically am greeted with about 30 to 45 seconds of silence. And then she goes, yeah, but you technically can't prove anything, which is such a scientist answer and reaction to that name. But ultimately, like our roots were, Amy went to the market and she said, hey, do you want this product? What we did was we had a community at that point of about 1,000 women, and we went to them with the name and we said, hey, what do you think about this name? And they really liked it and reacted very positively. And I think that is one of the things that's been so core to our business, is that we are so in touch with our consumers, and we ask for their input and feedback constantly. And it's been really helpful in terms of, charting the path forward for both branding, new products, marketing, et cetera.
Okay, so you mentioned with the MFB Fertility Inc. ovulation double check product that you had about 1,000 consumers back in was that 2018?
Yeah, I think 2017 through 2018.
Okay, and when did you start to see some growth? What were some of the initial catalysts behind that?
So we came up with the brand, we launched in 2018, and then we really started marketing and doing paid marketing in 2019, spring of 2019. And I will be totally honest, like it was not super, I mean, of course, like I know the technology inside and out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best idea. It's going to just fly off the shelves. And it is hard to educate on, it's a market that is very ingrained in its ways. I think Amy said it at the top, that the whole fertility kind of testing and tracking market is so focused on the idea of timing intercourse and like when sperm meets egg, and they are missing so much else that it's like to bring a new idea and a new piece of information was so disruptive, but also which is exciting, but also very difficult to kind of get people to understand what the difference is, especially since we look a lot like a traditional ovulation test or pregnancy test. So at first, it was, you really had to have some thick skin, because we first started marketing this stuff and people would just skewer us. They were like, you are ripping people off. You're just trying to sell the same old technology and you're charging, 5X for it, and shame on you and all these things. And so we really had to do tons of iterating and listening to feedback and not taking it personally and explaining. But I would say, again, because we have that really consumer focused approach, it really helped us, take off the emotion of it and be like, okay, how can we use this as a way, like when consumers are complaining or saying something to you that maybe could be perceived as negative, they're telling you something. And so you can, either get angry and shut down, or you can take that and, refocus it and channel it into moving the business forward. And that is what we chose to do. And so, we, slowly but surely started to get market traction. And, by the end of 2019, we had grown 5X versus actually 10X versus our baseline.
All right. And so Amy, this question's for you. So during that process of iteration, and sort of market exploration and understanding how to communicate the product to consumers, you've done a crowdfunding round. When did you realize that you needed to raise more money, and what were sort of the initial steps that you took to approach that process?
Yeah, I mean, we had the crowdfunding campaign, and like I said, it was myself and another scientist that also went through IVF that were kind of had this idea. And, we bootstrapped it. I did it like as my side hustle. I would finish my job and I would do this other thing. And then I would come home to my 2 kids. So it was okay for a little while, but there's only so much I could do. And then that other, the original co-founder that helped me with the idea, she had to exit due to health reasons. And so it was just me. And I came to the realization that I just couldn't do it myself. And nor was I doing the best job that I thought I could do. I mean, yes, we were selling, but I wasn't doing marketing. I didn't have a package. I didn't have a brand. I was helping, but I wasn't helping enough people, or I just didn't feel like I was. And so it was kind of that, like, do I give up, or, keep it like a small lifestyle, or do I really try to build this and help more and more people? So I knew I just couldn't do it myself. And I kind of teetered on that line until I kept getting emails from the original people that were using the product. And they're like, thank you for inventing this. Like, you've literally saved my marriage. I was like, wow, like that's powerful. And so, just because I knew I was really changing lives gave me that extra push, that extra passion to be like, you know what, I'm going to go out. I'm going to try to see if I can make this a thing. I knew I had to get a co-founder who knew the business side, who could brand it, who could package it. I knew I didn't have that skill set. I knew I didn't have access to capital, to resources, to people that I needed. I knew I needed a good patent attorney. I knew I needed a good lawyer. I knew I needed all these things that I didn't have. And so it was really that year mark where I, I like to say, came out of the closet and started networking and, joined the Denver startup community as, no, this is not a lifestyle business. I don't want to help, just 1,000 people. I want to help. It wasn't 1,000 at that point. It was 600, 800, somewhere around there. I wanted to help millions and I couldn't do it myself. And so that's, I embraced Denver and their amazing community. And, that's how I met Jeff. That's, how I met Ellen, how we met our investors, how we got a grant through OEdit to help us with building the product and funding the venture.
Okay, so initially you raised this sort of seed capital. How much was the initial seed round for?
700,000, and we also got a $250,000 grant from OEdit from Colorado.
Okay. So you now are in a position where you can go and approach manufacturers and start to get serious about the brand. As I recall, that didn't all happen smoothly. What were some of the manufacturing challenges that you encountered, and how did you deal with those?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things I would have done differently if I had known that this was really going to be a thing that was going to help so many people and grow to how big it is today. But we did what we had to do at the time that it was facing us. So, the biggest problem we had was on the manufacturing side. And so we only had a certain amount of money. And it was like, manufacturer A, B, and C told me it was going to cost $200,000, and I didn't have $200,000. But manufacturer D said, "Oh, I can. How much money you got? Oh, I can do it for that." And it wasn't until I had a little more experience under my belt that I realized that I basically was giving him the design file. Like, he owned the design file, and I couldn't not use him to manufacture it. Otherwise, I had start over. So it was a little complicated to, have a product in market with need and demand, and have your supply chain basically pull the rug out of under you and have to kind of manage that. So
that manufacturer had the design file, but you were pretty savvy about, the elements that you gave him, right? I mean, what were some of the things you did to safeguard the design while you're going through that?
I mean, we patent things as they came available. So even if he, stole the technology, we had it under patent before. We built relationships with suppliers where they couldn't supply him directly. So exclusivity, we tried to keep things as separate as possible. Yeah.
Nice. And then, aside from the manufacturing and kind of, somewhat indirectly related, you had some challenges with the FDA. You mentioned that was one of the initial things that you had considered, going to the website, reading the websites, figuring out how to do it yourself. But as it turned out, it didn't exactly match up with what the FDA thought you should be doing. So both of you walk through that process? As I recall, there were a lot of tears shed.
Yeah, I mean, the fertility space is not new, right? Like I said, everyone's focusing on that fertile window problem. And we were the only ones focusing on the uterus problem, right? And when you go to the FDA, there's different classifications. So class 1, 2, or 3. So just give an idea for the non-medical device people out there. A Band-Aid, a syringe is a class 1. So it is a medical device, but it's not very risky. 2 are like pregnancy tests, where if it's wrong, then you put your pregnancy at risk. And then 3s are like heart valves, pacemakers, so like life-saving things. And so, you go on the FDA website and you look up the product code, it's like, it's a class 1. All right, okay, cool, we could do that, class 1. We can just, and so there's a kind of like an information line you can call. Hey, FDA, I'm gonna do this. What do you think about that? And they told us, oh, you just have to register and list. It's a class 1. And they confirmed that. So we launched on Amazon. We were just going about our business, doing the stuff. And then the FDA calls us one day and said, you know what, you need a clearance because actually you're a class 2. And it was because we were the first ones in the market with a new technology. And so we had to go back and do a lot of studies and a lot of data and a lot of research. And it was a process because, that we had to teach the FDA what it is that we were doing, and they had to assess how riskful was it, what was the impact, how do we message it, and so we really laid the groundwork for this particular type of product within the FDA system. And so everything we measure progesterone, we're a progesterone test system. They're like, well, actually you're not. You measure metabolite of progesterone in urine. Oh, okay. So, just little things about, what we could and could not say. In hindsight, it was good to go through it because it gives us good value for exit, because your acquirers are going to want to know what the FDA says about your product. And so we have that dialogue, we have that approval, we have that stamp, we have that letter. It's actually right there, this side, right there. There it is. FDA clearance letter right next to my uterus, my 2 favorite things.
I love that you framed it. So why don't we talk a little bit about the pandemic? So this FDA timeframe was late 2019, early 2020. And what was that? What's the date of that letter, by the way?
February 28th, 2020.
Right. So,
which I actually honestly believe that it was a silver lining, I guess, of the timing, because I think they were trying to get as much off their desk before COVID hit. They're like, oh my God, something big is coming. We got to get this stuff out of here. And so I think we got pushed through. This is my theory. a little bit faster.
Very interesting. So I guess I'll turn to Ellen. Amy's been talking a lot. Ellen, what was it like for you as a small company, or running a small company at the start of the pandemic?
Well, initially it was, just, I guess, really scary is the only way that I can really describe it. And it was, a little bit of a bummer because that letter is dated February 28th, 2020. And so we actually had done a big press strategy, and we had embargoed press, and we're going to go announce this, and it's going to be so great and so big. And so it was, I believe, the Wednesday before the world shut down, pretty much. We go out, we're like, woohoo, FDA clearance, awesome. And it was super exciting. And we saw a nice bump from a sales standpoint, lots of people talking about us. And then 2 or 3 days later, everything had shut down. And we had also had a bit of an issue with an investor right before that had, kind of committed to things and then fallen through. So we had some cash, but we weren't, I guess, flush with cash, if you will. And so, you have this kind of perfect storm of lots of uncertainty in the world, with some uncertainty in our business too, because this tranche of money that we had planned on did not end up coming through. And so it was really scary. But ultimately, we paused, took a deep breath. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it's really what happened. I was call Amy. I was let's just talk through this and figure out what we're going to do. And we said, okay, how can we, pull down our spending and make sure that we're really only staying with the, really focused things. So, salary lines, we kind of kept stable. We actually gave our one employee a raise because we didn't want her to be nervous and feeling the same anxiety that we did. And we feel like, you know, again, this is a business that's founded on helping other people, and we treat our employees with that same, it's not about helping them, but like at least treating them well. And we wanted her to feel like it was going to be okay. So we did that. And then we just really went back to the consumer, which as a classic marketer, I will always talk about. And one of the things that happened at the same time that all this pandemic stuff was happening for everyone, and people were going and raiding the toilet paper aisles and going and loading up at Costco and things of that nature. And this is, you know, a little bit more of a serious thing, is that fertility clinics shut down. And so that was really hard. So you imagine these people that have been, typically the kind of standard of care is that you're not even allowed to set foot into a reproductive endocrinologist office until you've been trying for at least 12 months, if you're under 35. So you have people that have been trying for, you know, over a year, and then they finally get those appointments, and then all of a sudden it's like, surprise, everything's shut down. And so we really wanted to be, you know, we knew that our place was not to be like the end all be all solution, but that we could provide somewhat of a solution. And so we basically went to our consumers and we said, hey, if your you know, testing or treatment or anything has been put on hold, email us and we'll give you a free product. We'll just give you a kit. And that might seem kind of counterintuitive, that like it would help your business to give things away for free. But what that did for us is that it started, you know, kind of a spark of talking. We had actually multiple people that got pregnant from that group of people that gave us stories to then, you know, kind of later talk about in PR and stuff like that, which is not why we did it. But of course, you know, people were very appreciative. And then at the same time, we also decided to run, you know, a discount on our product, and just said, you know, like, we're going to be here. We're going to try to be as much of a solution for you as possible. You can still have virtual visits with your doctor. We're going to make this more accessible. We know that there's uncertainty around your treatment. There's uncertainty around a lot of people's jobs. So you might not be able to shell out the, you know, typical price point for this. So let us try to support you in this time of you know, uncertainty. We did not use those words in marketing because they became very, very cliche, unprecedented times and times of uncertainty. But we just went to our consumers and said, you know, we're here to help you. We're here to support you however we can. And it worked really well for us.
All right. So Amy, you know, what, I guess emotionally, what do you think helped you get through the COVID pandemic? Especially during that initial period when things were uncertain.
So we also joke about this conversation too, is Ellen calls me, she's like, oh my God, we're done for. No one's gonna have kids. This is a fertility company, world is shut down, we're in a pandemic. And I was like, oh, it's fine. It'll be like 2 weeks. We'll get back. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. So originally I didn't really worry about it that much. You know, the good thing about having a co-founder is that whatever you lack, your other half, so to speak, has, right? So, you know, as you're building a business, you want to have a relationship with a co-founder that you guys complement each other and help each other out. And so the way Ellen and I work really well together is we're very complementary, but we're on opposite ends. And so like, I'll be like, oh, totally, it's fine. And Ellen's like flipping out. And you know what? It's like the middle. And each one of us kind of grounds each other, because it's not always Ellen flipping out and me fine. It could be the other way around. And so, you know, I think the way we managed it was very professional. It was very, you know, like she said, we leaned into our consumer and helped her get through it. We didn't focus on, oh my gosh, our business. It was, let's do what we can to help her, which is the entire mission of the company, is to help people the most that the best that we can. And so that's kind of how we got through it, was, you know what, we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing. And, you know, there was another silver lining of COVID was that, you know, we were running a really high acquisition cost. And because a lot of our sales go through Amazon, just because of the nature of our business where women want it and they want it very quickly. And so Amazon obviously gets there faster than we could possibly ship it because they figured that problem. But during the pandemic, Amazon pretty much shut down. And so the only way for women to get the product was our website. And because they were going through our website, we were able to learn more about the consumer, and we were able to find who is the right target for Prove. And so we were able to get our acquisition costs down. They've remained down. So another kind of silver lining of COVID is you could think the worst, but then something totally surprises you. Like, wow, more people are doing remote diagnostics. Hey, we're a remote diagnostic. Cool, this is actually better for us.
So, sort of on that note, you came through the pandemic. The company saw, significant growth. You are now venture backed. You're one of the leading, if not the leading, early stage female-led company in Colorado. There's 11 employees, is that right, or 10?
We have 8 employees.
Oh, 8 employees. Okay, all female. So what are some of the things you've learned about being part of an all-female team or leading an all-female team?
We were fortunate not have like cattiness or, a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, you have so many women in a room, like how do you survive, kind of thing. Everyone just loves their job. Our employees love what they do. They love the company. They love the mission. They are building their career. We are setting them up for success. We're giving them skills that they can use as they move forward. And so it's about finding the right person. And it's not female, male, black, white, orange. It's the right person. And it's the passion, it's the drive. I mean, almost, I wouldn't say half, but a good proportion of our employees are people that use Prove and are just so passionate about the product. They're like, hey, do you have any job openings? Yeah, absolutely. And so that's how we've been successful, is not just to find somebody to fill the seat and to do the job, but to find somebody super passionate about what they're doing, that they find pride in it. I always say this, I actually just said this like, an hour ago on an email. If you're successful, we are successful. And so I want our employees to be successful, to give them what they need to grow. And so that's why I think, we talk about uteruses all day long. So, we're more attracted to females because they get it a little bit more, but a super awesome guy came along who knew the uterus, then come on board.
Well, I like to joke now that I'm probably in the top 0.1% of men knowing about the menstrual cycle, having written several patent applications on the technology. So hopefully I'm partially that super awesome guy that knows a little bit about the uterus. On that note, Ellen, I'm going to ask you a similar question. What, especially coming from a bigger company, what are some specific interesting challenges that you think you face that maybe male founders or male leaders in companies might not face?
That's kind of a tricky question because I don't know. I guess the perception is some of the stuff that Amy said at the top too, where I do think that, we were actually, well, I guess I'll leave with this. So we were chatting with a VC this morning, and like they had mentioned another, like a male fertility company, basically like a company that does like what we do, but for men, and about how the VC money is just like flowing in. And, I often, get frankly a little bit frustrated with the fact that there's like problems that exist for men that have been solved a lot faster than I would argue some problems have been solved for women. So, you know, it is tricky because I think that the world is changing. We have a lot of really amazing VCs, many of whom are, you know, either all female funds that focus on female founders, or you know, people of color who focus on only, you know, founders of color, LGBTQ, and female led companies. And so there's definitely, the tide is changing where there's more backing and more interest in women led companies. But you know, traditionally, and you look at the statistics, so, you know, the numbers don't lie. A lot of the VC money and like the money in general goes to male founders. So I think what I've kind of felt through the whole process is that, you know, we've had to almost like over deliver our goals to achieve the same things that, you know, maybe other founders, not that I'm saying it's easy for anybody, but that other founders, you know, maybe they can just hit their goals or even miss them a little bit, and get the same backing and interest.
Okay, so, you know, we're getting a little bit close on time here, and I want to leave a few minutes for questions. But sort of the last question for both of you, and Ellen, I'll start with you. Sort of a multi-part question. What's your biggest achievement so far with Prove? What do you foresee happening with the company, and what advice would you give for other founders?
I mean, honestly, I think that my biggest achievement was probably hitting that 7-figure mark. I think, you know, as you've wisely told me, the first million is the hardest. Not that subsequent million haven't been hard too, but it is really hard when you're trying to get that flywheel going, and, you know, you're like going person by person, being like, please, please, please buy my product. And once you get a little bit more of that critical mass, then it starts to kind of fuel itself, and you get the word of mouth and all that kind of stuff, especially in our business, which, you know, I always talk about this, but economically, I mean, human wise, it's an amazing business, but economically, it's not amazing. It's not super amazing because our product is designed to be obsolete, right? So it's like you use it, you get pregnant, and then you're like, thank you, Prove, see ya, right? And so from a lifetime value standpoint, it's you know, not as optimal as some other things, but you know, we found a way to continue to grow it, and because we have those experiences that we, you know, help people through in these really important parts of their lives, that you know, we've been able to see that flywheel kind of turn on a little bit. And so I think that is probably like my greatest business achievement. What were the other questions? Sorry, went too long on that one.
What's on the roadmap, and what advice would you give for other founders?
Got it. Okay, what's on the roadmap? So on the roadmap is just, you know, we, at the end of the day, our core is, you know, bettering the lives of people with uteruses through new technologies. We are not going to be a company that just, you know, takes old technology and makes it pretty and puts it out there. We're always going to be pushing ourselves to like think of like real game-changing solutions. One of our pillars is putting things out there that really change the game for women and people who identify as women. So, or people who, have uteruses. And so, you know, I think that's really the key is we're going to be continuing to push out new testing products, new products that help then, you know, solve some of the issues that maybe the tests identify, and just continuing to build this idea around, you know, unleashing the power of the menstrual cycle in the uterus, because it's about creating life, but it's also really the cornerstone of a lot of how women live. And then I guess advice, you know, I think I started at the top. I also talked about this like Venn diagram. I really believe that if you can find that sweet spot in the middle, I know that that's, you know, not always something that you can find right out the gate in your career, or something that everybody, you know, is, I guess, privileged to do. Sometimes you have to just take a job because it pays really well or whatever, but finding that sweet spot between what you are really good at, what there is a need for, and then what you have passion for is just so powerful. And when you can kind of get all those three things and, you know, kind of on the same plane, you can really, you know, do great things.
So, same question for you, Amy.
I'm gonna go with FDA clearance as my biggest accomplishment. That was a big one. Like same what Ellen said with where we're going is, it's all about empowering women to love their cycle and to get it to be a healthy cycle. And so that isn't just fertility, that's anywhere. That's heavy periods, painful periods, going through menopause. So, it's like opening that aperture of when we should think about our cycles, because so many things that we do as women are dependent on your cycle. So just increasing that education, the resources, the solutions for women. And then what was the last question? Oh, advice. Advice is to, like, I tell this even to women, follow your heart, like follow your gut, do the right thing, and don't let, any person tell you no, like that's not right. We say that a lot with women, with our consumers, is advocate for yourself, stand up for yourself. Don't take no for an answer. You don't like this doctor, there's another one down the street, right? So as a founder, that investor said no, doesn't mean you have a bad idea. It's you didn't fit in their thesis, their little box. Go talk to somebody else. So I guess follow your gut, your intuition. And yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, we've got just a few minutes, maybe time for one or two questions. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. Seeing as though there are none, I suppose we should say thank you, everyone who has attended. If you want to learn more about Prove, you can visit provetest.com. And yeah, everyone have a great Denver Startup Week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.